You've learned how to work hard, but you haven't learned how to become wealthy. In this video, you'll discover the 6 skills that separate those who stagnate from those who explode financially. No bullshit, no fantasies, I guarantee it. Let's do a quick calculation. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median salary in the United States is approximately $45,000 per year. To retire comfortably, you need to work 40 years. That's $1.8 million earned over an entire career. $1.8 million against 40 years of your life. Meanwhile, some millionaires achieve this in 1 year, some in 1 month, even in 1 day. Jeff Bezos, for instance, makes between $2 to $4 million every hour. That's the equivalent of an entire career in 60 minutes, not once, but every single hour. So is it a matter of luck, family inheritance, genetics? What if I told you that wealth is like an iceberg? What you see on the surface, the luxurious mansions, the Lamborghinis, the incredible vacations, represents just a fraction. Beneath the water, hidden from view, lies a set of rare skills invisible to most people's eyes. And it's these 6 skills precisely that separate the top 1% from the 99%. I know what you're thinking. Another video full of promises that will lead nowhere. I'm absolutely certain these skills will accelerate your financial freedom. But let's be clear, the path I'm about to reveal is far from easy and will require training. Let's establish a first observation. We all grow up hearing the same refrain, work hard and you'll be rewarded. But is that completely true? What if working hard isn't enough? Unfortunately, 80% of people run on an infinite treadmill. They run faster and faster just to stay in the same place. And that's exactly where society wants to keep you. If you want to truly get rich, forget what they taught you in school. Forget what your parents or friends think they know about money. I know what it feels like to give everything and feel like nothing works. What if you simply didn't have the right cards in your hand until now? Today, we explore the brutal truth about what really makes people wealthy. Skill number 1, the wealth equation, and sweat beads on your forehead. You work harder than other people around you, yet you can't seem to get as rich as you'd like. Why? Because money isn't governed by how hard you work. It responds to one rule: your ability to bring value that is perceived by others as valuable. This is very important. Can you put in tremendous effort to do something? You know, it's like love languages. Imagine my love language is giving gifts, but for my wife, gifts mean nothing. Well, I can go all out to make the biggest gift in the world. So it has value in itself, you'd agree. But if for my wife it has little meaning, the value I've actually brought her is low. The ability to get rich is ultimately the intersection of your capacity to bring value and the ability to ensure that it brings value to others in their eyes. The top 1% doesn't work harder, they work on problems. Listen carefully here. This is very important if you understand this, especially if you're an entrepreneur or want to be one. It's decisive. It took me time to understand this, and it slowed me down in my ability to become financially free. The more painful the problem, the more they'll be willing to pay. The more urgent the problem, the more price becomes secondary. The more your product touches people's identity, the stronger it is. The more popular the problem, the more people you can reach. The more frequent the problem, the more money you'll make. Let's pause for a moment, because the point isn't just to hear this, but to truly realize that maybe I'm spending time solving problems that aren't that painful for people, not that urgent. Problems that once solved don't lead to other problems, making it hard to sustain the relationship. Problems that don't touch any status and are shared by a tiny number of people. The wealth equation is therefore problem circumstancy, status stan, scale stan, scale stis competition. This means the less competition there is to do these 5 things above, naturally, the richer you'll become. So every time you approach the choice of where to put your energy, you go through these 5 filters. That's on the business side. When I say business, it can be on an individual scale if you're a freelancer or if you've created your personal brand. Now let's move to the individual scale. Money follows rarity. Caviar, I don't know if you've ever tried it, it's good. But honestly, if pasta were the price of caviar, I could understand. Caviar has value because it's rare. So if you want to be in the top 1%, you want to develop a combination of skills that no one else has. The only way to enter the top 1% and therefore earn more than 99% of people is to combine rare skills to solve a problem in a unique way. Because if you can solve a painful and urgent problem with a set of skills that only you possess, well, your value will increase because money responds to a law you've already heard of: supply and demand. If the problem is painful, there's demand. And if on the other side there's very little supply because you've developed a unique ability to solve these problems, naturally you'll be able to position your prices much higher. A teacher, a nurse, it's not so much that they lack skills, but in the market's perception, you can find other people with the same skills. Imagine you're a designer, you've developed design skills, you basically know Photoshop, and you present yourself on LinkedIn and around you as a graphic designer. What's the problem if you present yourself as a graphic designer? Massive competition, difficult to stand out. Okay, I have a logo problem, I have a website creation problem, interface for my mobile application, but there are thousands of designers, and on top of that, there are plenty of tutorials to learn design. So why would I buy from you? And even less, why would I buy from you at a higher price? Now imagine that not only do you have design skills, but on top of that, you've developed copywriting skills, the art of choosing words that sell, and on top of that, you have neuroscience skills, meaning the art of using visuals in relation to human psychology to facilitate and influence human behaviors. That is, you know how to arrange elements visually to favor a behavior. We know, for example, that a price on the right or left doesn't have the same impact, that a price in orange and green doesn't have the same impact. So imagine you've developed these three skills. Suddenly, do you see that your ability to solve a painful and urgent problem on a larger scale is much higher? Because people who will have these three sets of mixed skills and who will put them at the service of, for example, a company looking to make an advertisement with text aimed at generating sales, there are far fewer of them. It's good to know how to make something beautiful. It's another thing to know how to make something beautiful that knows how to sell visually and whose words included in the advertisement know how to sell. There, you have a golden skill. People who can make advertisements aimed at creating financial return, there are plenty. And since on top of that, if it works, it will generate a return on investment, well, you've solved a recurring problem. The person will need you again. Isn't the difference amazing? And you are unique. You have a set of skills that are unique. When I tried to create my company, I asked myself, what are the skills I have, and what are the skills I want to develop that others won't have the patience to develop because I'm playing for 10 years? So you take skill A, you take skill B, you take skill C, and you play at the intersection of these three things. That's your singularity, the place where you're unique, the place where competition doesn't exist. Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal, said, competition doesn't exist. Competition is for losers. Why? Because in your singularity, no one can beat you. You won't be able to beat someone who's in their zone of genius. So principle number 1, money doesn't obey workers, it obeys value creators. Develop a unique set of skills that are your own. Skill number 2, the art of persuasion. Creating value is good, but it's not enough. At least it will distinguish you, but maybe not enough to truly join the top 1%. When you talk with the top 1%, honestly, they're not much more intelligent. Sure, they're far from being idiots, but most of the time, you're not necessarily blown away. In fact, they're better at one thing: persuading. And in America, we have a complex relationship with persuasion. We often consider persuasion as something bad. It's interesting. The best-selling personal development book in the history of humanity is a book originally titled How to Win Friends and Influence People. Many people struggle with the concept of influence because they confuse it with manipulation, the intention to use others for profit at their expense. But true influence is the ability to love someone enough to understand their need, articulate what you want to propose to them in a way that will resonate with them, so as to build a fair exchange. An exchange where you win and I win. Because in an economic world, especially an internet world, the world is extremely small. So if what you do, you want to do it for several years. To last, you need to build a reputation. And to build a reputation, you need to be sensitive to fair exchange. So influence isn't the art of scamming others. Influence is allowing others to see what they don't see yet. When, for example, you have someone who is overweight because for them exercise is boring, because for them managing their diet is boring, and you manage through your choice of words to help them see exercise as something sexier, more interesting, is that manipulation to their detriment, or is that influence to help them see what they haven't seen yet today? In fact, good teachers, good coaches, good parents, good educators, good leaders are necessarily people who know how to influence. It's the art of transmitting an idea so that everyone wins. People who get rich make others want to hire them. They get loans at better rates, they raise funds, they manage to convince talent to join them, they sell a vision and transform it into money. It's unfortunate or not, I don't know. But when you look at Aristotle's story, Aristotle was furious. And Aristotle was angry because he said, "It's crazy, it's not the best ideas that win. It's the best expressed ideas that win." And it's this reason that led him to create the school of rhetoric, because he wanted to give power to people who have interesting ideas to know how to convey them. So sales is an applied version of psychology to become rich. Let's take Steve Jobs' return and the Think Different campaign, which is somewhat legendary advertising for me. What's really interesting in this advertisement is that when Steve Jobs returns to Apple, we see speeches from him where he says, "We lost our soul, we forgot why we existed both internally, and we made the market forget why we existed. We're not here to sell computers, we're here to sell a dream, a message. We're here to sell beliefs, DNA." So instead of talking about the technical characteristics of the latest Mac, the ad is focused solely on highlighting legendary figures: Albert Einstein, Martin Luther King, Richard Branson, Gandhi. The ad makes you emotional and actually creates an emotional association between the brand and the Mac. So that's what makes it so that unconsciously, when you see this advertisement, since you're touched if you resonate with the values presented by the advertisement, you're going to create an emotional association that's stronger with Apple. And so suddenly, you'll be more likely to buy. The mistake often is simply to talk about products, characteristics of what we do, rather than giving weight to why we do things and where we want to go. So Apple was no longer just a tech brand, it was a revolutionary brand. And so that's interesting because you could say, "Oh yes, but that's just Apple." But actually, when you present your ideas, do you present them with a metaphor, with examples? The way I'm talking to you right now, I take examples to make them more concrete for you, to make them more visual, to illustrate them with you. If you develop the ability to express yourself in a more sensory and visual way, you'll see that you'll have more impact. So Steve Jobs didn't sell computers. He sold a creative revolution. So never sell a product, your time, or a characteristic, sell a transformation. Sell an emotional journey, sell an identity change. Really master this and your life will be very different. Often I saw when I was in corporate, people who said, "Oh, but he got promoted through connections. That's disgusting. He's just a smooth talker. That's disgusting." And actually, when I was 19, I was fascinated to hear people say that because these weren't people who had been promoted because their father was there. These were people who had been promoted, but who came like me, nobody knew them. And why had they been promoted? Because they were better at creating relationships. And at that time, I was rather insecure. But when I saw that, instead of saying like my friends, "Oh, that's disgusting," he got promoted even though he's not better technically, I said to myself, but how do you learn the art of getting promoted? And the art of getting promoted, if you don't come from the right family, is the art of managing to create such deep connections that people will want to invest in you. They said, "Oh, but that's disgusting." But actually, we all do that. A restaurateur we like, we'll be ready to go back to him even if he's more expensive. A hairdresser we like, we'll be ready to go more often with her, even if she's potentially more expensive. Human beings are social animals. When we like someone, we want to buy from them, period. You can fight against this, but as long as we have the same brain, you'll struggle. So skill number 2, learn to sell. Learn to tell stories, not lies, but stories. Learn influence. The world belongs to people who master these skills. Skill number 3, becoming antifragile. The thing is, on the path to wealth, even if you've created value and know how to talk about it, the path to wealth is far from rosy. And I think among you, there are many who know this firsthand. You encounter obstacles, and this brings us to the ultimate test and skill number 3. There's a concept I love that was popularized by one of my heroes, Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Really brilliant. I like his model. He says there are 3 types of systems. First type of system, fragile systems. A crystal glass is fragile. I take it, I drop it, it breaks. And solid systems. This table, a block of stone, it resists shock. So this table, I can hit it, it resists. However, if I hit very hard, at some point, what's going to happen? It's going to give way. We tend to think that the art of succeeding is to be someone solid, who has no emotion, who has no sensitivity, who no matter what happens, nothing affects them. You agree that in popular language, when we think of stoicism, being stoic, we think of someone who has no emotion. But actually, that's a distortion of the true definition of stoicism, which is not at all about not having emotions. When you read Marcus Aurelius' memoirs, you realize he's a human being like many emotional human beings. However, he's neither fragile nor solid. He's anti-fragile, a system that is resilient. You're going to give it a shock. It's going to resume its shape. But what's stronger in anti-fragility is that you don't resume your shape. You strengthen after the shock. So that's the difference between a fragile system, solid, resilient, and anti-fragile. The immune system, for example, is anti-fragile. Each disease strengthens you and makes you more resistant to future similar diseases. Really, what's important to understand if you want to be able to develop your finances is that anti-fragility is something that's both coded in us, but it's also something we can develop. When I look at the teenager I was, well, I was extremely fragile. The slightest criticism from one of my classmates affected me. I remember in music class, we had to sing in front of everyone. They must have laughed or I don't know exactly, and it traumatized me. Every night before music class, I got sick. I had a stomachache. I wasn't well. Yet, I'm not even sure in hindsight that they were really making fun of me. Young people just laugh. I associated singing in front of my classmates with humiliation. Humiliation that wasn't necessarily real, I insist. But in my head, it was humiliation, and I think I was sick at least 50 times on the nights before music class. That's interesting. I was fragile. A shock destroyed me. Over time, I realized that, actually, this is what's crazy about human beings. We have this anti-fragile potential. Even if I was potentially weakened at the time, I had the possibility to learn to bounce back. Let's take Elon Musk's example. In 2002, Elon has no space experience. You should know that the space environment is controlled by giants like Boeing and NASA, among others. Experts mock him, and there are videos we can find on the internet where we see his childhood heroes mocking him, including Neil Armstrong, who finds what Elon Musk wants to do ridiculous and thinks he'll never succeed. What do you think of that? I was very sad to see that, because those guys are heroes of mine. So it's really tough, you know? I wish they would come and visit and see the hardware that we're building, and I think that would change their mind. They inspired you to do this, didn't they? Yes. And to see them casting stones in your direction. In 2006, after 4 years of effort and millions spent, SpaceX is going to attempt its first flight. And the rocket that costs millions, 4 years of work, 4 years of criticism, is going to explode after 33 seconds after takeoff. I just want you to imagine, most of us get depressed after making a video that took us a week and didn't get enough views. A video that didn't cost us much. There, imagine you spent half or 3/4 of your fortune to do something that lasted 4 years, that you got people on board with you, and after 33 seconds, it just exploded in flight. Everyone tells him, listen, that's enough. If you wanted proof, you have the proof, stop. 1 year later, second launch, the rocket explodes in mid-flight due to a fuel leak. 1 year later, 2008, third launch, 2 years of work since the last crash, 6 years since the start of the adventure, and once again the rocket fails. 6 years. Musk, at that point, is out of money and on the verge of bankruptcy. And during this time, we could say, well, he has other companies that are doing well. His other company, Tesla, doesn't have enough money to deliver the first cars. Musk is going to put his last $20 million to save Tesla. Sometimes you see people on the internet saying, yeah, but he has $20 million, so it's nothing for him. Money is very relative. So when you have hundreds of millions and you put your last millions, it hurts just as much, I can guarantee you, as a person who has $10,000 who puts their last $10,000. Money is relative. If it really wasn't relative, then 100% of people in the West who have minimum wage would have no reason to complain, since we're among the richest on the planet when we have minimum wage in America. 2008, a few months later, Musk gathers his teams and tells them, here's the deal. We have just enough money for one last shot, all or nothing. And this time, the rocket is going to work. The Falcon 1 succeeds in its flight. I'll let you imagine the emotion that brings when you've been working for 6 years, and the entire planet has made fun of you, including your childhood heroes. Months later, he's going to sign a $1.6 billion contract. SpaceX becomes one of the most revolutionary companies of the century, and during this time, he saves Tesla with his team. Tesla will surpass the valuation of Ford and other companies combined. My point isn't to praise him. My point is to say, if you can't stand losing, you'll never win. So every problem is an opportunity wrapped in pain. And the difference between two people is the capacity you'll put into learning from what happens, your mistakes, your criticisms, how you manage to become anti-fragile. Why do we suffer? We suffer because we're attached to certain illusions. The illusion that when we do something for the first time, it's supposed to work. The illusion that people aren't supposed to criticize us, and that we're supposed to live in a world of rainbows and unicorns. We have so many illusions that the gap between our unrealistic expectations about life and the perception of our life today makes us suffer. If we had to design a game in which we put humans in which we wanted to optimize the chances that they become anti-fragile, imagine you have to create this game. Would you put humans in a game where they're massaged all day long, valued all day long, where we ensure, even if we have to cheat, that everything they do succeeds on the first try? In your opinion, after 2 years of this game, do you have anti-fragile humans? You have extremely fragile humans. So if you had to design a game in which you create anti-fragile humans, how would you design it? Well, there's a chance you'd do what? You'd put people to criticize them, you'd put failures, you'd put successes too. You'd put people to support them, you'd put people to talk behind their backs, you'd put people to support them at that moment. You'd put learning, you'd put mentors to give them lessons, you'd put mentors to criticize them, you'd put lots of things. And that creates an anti-fragile human being in the end. I have good news, life has created this game for you and you're already in this game. However, if you spend your time being in a game that's designed for your anti-fragility, complaining and fantasizing about a game that would be designed for you to be fragile, well, you're not taking advantage of the game. Angela Duckworth, who is a researcher I really like, has shown that the most resilient and persistent individuals are those who succeed best. When she talks about resilience, it's resilience in the sense of anti-fragility. So how do you build your resilience in the sense of anti-fragility? Well, by forging a tolerance for failure, even an almost love of failure. Not a love in the sense of, oh, failure is good and unicorns and I wish I would fail, but realizing that it's part of the path and that the key is the time you take to learn, by cultivating an ability to embrace criticism and learn from it, by developing the ability to calm your nervous system when you perceive the storm. The real question, therefore, isn't, are you smart enough? Are you smart enough? Are you lucky enough? Do you have the right family or the right genetics? The real question is, are you ready to take the pain longer than others and learn from it? Hence the quote you all certainly know from one of the philosophers I really like, Friedrich Nietzsche, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." And when you read Nietzsche, you see that it's not just a crappy Instagram quote. You see how much it's the heart of his philosophy, that for him, the weak spirit seeks ease. So, skill number 3, don't be fragile or solid, become anti-fragile. Skill number 4, master your time. At this stage, you solve painful, urgent, popular problems. You communicate with assertiveness, entering so much into the other person's world, having so much love for the other that you manage to articulate ideas almost better than they themselves can. And you're anti-fragile. But then, even if you're approaching the 1%, there's one thing we all get credited with every day, the same exact amount, the same number of seconds. And yet, What we're going to do with it will determine our trajectory. Skill number 4. The top 1% understands that the most precious resource in the world isn't your money, it's your time. The most important investment is choosing how you allocate your time. People who get richer learn to become more productive. Right now, for example, I'm preparing an incredible video about Napoleon. You see that Napoleon placed value on managing his time. Elon Musk places value on managing his time. Roosevelt placed value on managing his time. The top 1% develops the ability to define the few things that matter. They learn in a world of distraction to focus. And distractions aren't just 2025, it's the history of humanity. When you read Seneca, you see that sometimes he has trouble concentrating with the noise of carts in the streets of Rome making noise. Sure, it was certainly less disturbing than TikTok, but even then, he needed to learn to concentrate. So, skill number 4, stop wasting your time just wanting to make money. Learn to be as productive as possible. And productive doesn't mean going fast, it means putting the little energy you have on what will make a real difference. Skill number 5, think critically, not logically. What's fascinating is that at the beginning, your work is a key, and the more you advance, the less the key is work. The key is how you think and how you reason. And for me, this is really a phase I'm trying to re-educate myself on because I got to where I am in my life by working a lot, and I still plan to work just as much because it's something I really love. I have a relationship with work that's beautiful for me. But anyway, the more you advance, the more you're rewarded for the quality of your reflections, the more you're rewarded for thinking more and more clearly, for being able to think for yourself, not following trends, taking a step back, identifying cognitive biases in yourself and in others. This brings me to skill number 5. The world doesn't function logically, the world functions psychologically. If it were logical, the best products would always win. The most competent would always be the best paid. People would always make the best financial choices, the smartest ones, but that's not true. Research in behavioral economics shows that cognitive biases, loss aversion, overconfidence, the desire to follow the herd, and there are hundreds of other documented cognitive biases, make us make bad decisions as investors. We're going to invest in Bitcoin at the worst moment because it's when everyone is investing. When your barber tells you, "Hey, I invested in Bitcoin," it stinks. So most of the time, we hear about companies that are exploding at the moment when it's not necessarily the wisest. In an increasingly complex world with AI that's breaking everything, I don't know if you've seen the robots coming. Honestly, it's scary. They're going to cook, they're going to do restaurant work, they're going to carry your groceries, they're going to carry your cleaning. There are even robots that will have mannequin bodies that you can make love to and that will be able to talk to you. We're entering a world that's honestly scary in many aspects. It's also stimulating in other aspects. In terms of education, there will be spectacular advances. In terms of medicine, we'll finally be able to provide personalized treatments. Medicine is very complicated. In any case, what's certain is that it's a tsunami. It's going to break everything. So, the ability in the fog to breathe, to be anti-fragile, to oxygenate and identify the few variables that matter, to know how to identify your own cognitive biases, external euphoria or economic depression of the world, and be able to make good decisions, that's a skill. It's not me saying this. There are many reports coming out now that one of the most key skills in the world we're entering is the ability for critical thinking. By the way, in these same reports, what are the other skills mentioned? The ability to influence, the ability to persuade, the ability to manage time. The World Economic Forum cited it as the number 3 most demanded skill in the future of work. So instead of accelerating, for example, this is a study I find fascinating. You know, we're very impatient as humans, and when we're in an elevator, we tend to find time long. So there are 2 ways to approach the problem. Either you say, I'm gonna put millions at stake to try to make a faster elevator. Except when you've already optimized, well, making an elevator faster, well, you're trying to defy gravity anyway. It can be dangerous, it can require more expensive materials. So there are 2 approaches. There's the brute force approach. Come on, let's put millions at stake. Let's try to create a faster elevator. Or there's Rory Sutherland's approach. They put mirrors in elevators. And what happens when there's a mirror in an elevator? Well, you look at yourself. And it's quite fascinating how we can spend hours looking at ourselves. And when we look at ourselves, The elevator could be 3 times slower. We're fine with our face. So you agree that it costs less to put mirrors than to reinvent an entire mechanism for an elevator to go up faster. That's the ability to think critically. The art of thinking critically is something you find more and more in the programs we create. I've created a protocol called Hard Road, which is the art of going from your vision to concretely what's the action that matters, where we created a module on the art of making strategic decisions by mixing rational and emotional with intuition. In short, the ability to make key decisions is decisive. The top 1% sees what the 99% ignore: opportunities in crisis, levers where others see obstacles, asymmetries where the majority sees risks. Skill number 5, don't always seek to solve problems logically. Learn to think critically. Skill number 6, lead and coach others. Others thinking critically is essential, but how do you help others think clearly? How do you bring value to others? Because naturally, for any project, you're going to be connected with others. And if your success depended directly on your ability to guide others with you. Skill number 6 is the ability to lead people with you. There are 2 sub-skills to this: the ability to articulate an inspiring vision and the ability to coach. Why is coaching so powerful? Because the sound of our own voice is what we love most. Hence why, when we give advice, it doesn't work because the sound of the voice we hear is the advisor's voice. Why is coaching, or the person who learns to coach as a manager or as a parent, so powerful? Because the person who talks the most in coaching is who? The person being coached. So when you learn the art of asking Socratic questions, you allow the other person to birth their answers. Hence, the art of meiotics. Meiotics is the art of giving birth, not just to a baby, but also to answers. When you know how to lead others by making answers emerge in them because you ask them quality questions, 3 phenomena happen. First, you engage them more. Second, people will go much further with their ideas than with yours. Third, by coaching others, you become better at self-coaching. That's really something I observe in coaching school. I see people evolve over 2 years of coaching school, for example, and I see how by coaching others, their ability to think critically improves because coaching is helping others think more critically and objectively. Their ability to influence progresses because influence is having enough empathy to put yourself in the other person's place. And when you're a coach, you're forced to put yourself in your coachee's place, to try to understand their world so much that it enriches your mental map of how humans function. Today, for me, it's very easy to close my eyes and imagine what someone might think, because my brain is filled with 15 years of anecdotes that people tell me about their lives. Naturally, it's easier to understand what sometimes they themselves will have trouble articulating or admitting to the world. Because I'm also in a space where people admit things to me that they sometimes don't admit to their husband, wife, children, or anyone else. If you want to be rich, develop these skills. But here's the mistake: simply generating income with your main source of income and counting only on your income sources. It's great to put 90% of your energy in the place that excites you most. However, invest 10%, 5% of your energy to learn how to invest. We underestimate the power of compound interest. Our brain is not at all made to apprehend compound interest. We understand it intellectually, but every time we do experiments, people are way off. Even when they know that compound interest has a crazy effect, we can't evaluate it. Take this analogy I use very often: 1 grain of rice on the first square of a chessboard that doubles on each square of a chessboard. First square, you have 1 grain of rice. Second square, 2 grains of rice. Second square, 2 grains of rice. Second square, 2 grains of rice. Third square, 4 grains of rice. 8, 16 compound interest. You know what's crazy? By the 64th square, it's the equivalent in grains of rice of 650 years of global rice production. 650 years of global rice production. And even though I know this, even though I teach compound interest, every time I think, wait, I miscalculated, there's a problem, how is this possible? And there, I can guarantee you, I've checked. It's absolutely insane. We can't apprehend it because our ancestors, well, it's simple. You advance 1 meter per second. In 10 seconds, you've done 10 meters. That's linear growth. Exponential growth, we see it daily, so we underestimate it. Really learn to invest because it will allow you at some point for your invested capital that's growing to generate more income than your main income source. And when you look at Warren Buffett's graph, 20% of his fortune is generated at the end. It's completely irrational. Let's summarize. Skill 1, money doesn't obey workers, it obeys value creators. Develop a set of skills that are truly unique to you, that correspond to where you can bring the most value to the world. And these can be things that seem completely different. Maybe you have a passion for music, and a passion for dance, and a passion for history, and maybe you can organize trips where we'll dance salsa and at the same time visit historical places to understand the history of salsa, Anything is possible when we start being creative. Skill 2, learn to sell, to tell stories, yours and those of others, forgetting the lies, of course. Learn influence, the art of creating fair exchanges. The world belongs to people who master sales, influence, storytelling. Skill 3, don't be fragile or solid. Become anti-fragile. Develop this ability to be calm in the storm. For me, really, I see how these 15 years of entrepreneurship have been violent in many places, incredible in many places, and each time it was an opportunity to become the man I wanted to be, to learn to be more serene when dealing with criticism, hate, or doubt. Develop this ability to learn, because even when someone sends you their hateful message, sometimes in the middle of the hate, there's something interesting to learn. And anyway, it develops your ability to respond with humor, to take perspective. It develops your capacity for self-love. Because when we criticize you and you take it badly, it's because there's a part of you that's not comfortable with that. Failure is the same. We don't wish for failure. We're not stupid. But we don't want to flee from it. We want to tame it, learn as quickly as possible, move on to something else, continue. Skill 4, stop wasting your time on many things. Simply seek to concentrate on the few things that matter and move them forward. Skill 5, don't seek to solve problems in a way that simply seems logical on the surface. Learn to think critically. Get out of the sheep mentality. Develop your thinking. The art of thinking critically is the art of noting when you're emotional. When you say you hate someone, that's a signal that there's little chance you're in your critical thinking. When you're very emotional about the actions or non-actions of others or yourself, your loved ones, or someone on the internet, there's a good chance you're not thinking critically. Skill 6, develop your ability to coach, to lead, to bring people along by asking Socratic questions. What saddens me is that most people are dead at 18, 22, 23 years old. Most people consider education as something for children. We don't realize, especially today with AI, that we have incredible power. We're the only living species on this earth to have the power to re-educate ourselves. Pavlov's dog, when you ring the bell, doesn't have the possibility to re-educate itself. In 3 months, the entirety of humanity, for me, that fascinates me. We have the power to become the architect of our own life. Isn't that insane? You can be 15 years old, uncomfortable in your skin, unable to raise your hand in class or be comfortable with girls, convinced that you'll always be unsuccessful, not comfortable speaking publicly, and have people tell you, accept it, you're not comfortable. That's how it is. There are charismatic people like you who are losers. That's how it is. Screw that status and decide to take back power over your life. What does that mean? It means developing human skills that give you power. Critical thinking, communication, the ability to speak in public, to be more resilient, more anti-fragile. That gives you an insane competitive advantage. So if you want to become rich, stop hoping on a couch thinking it's a question of abundance. It's a question of bringing value by solving problems. Your brain is neuroplastic. That means until the last second of your life, you have the possibility to redesign who you are. Is it easy? No. But is it easy to have a life you hate? That's even worse. So I hope this video, beyond the tangible elements I've shared with you, plants this seed in your head that you can create an incredible life. No matter what your entourage tells you, no matter what you tell yourself at your worst moments, you have the possibility every day to beat the old you, to be a little better at one of these skills. By doing this, imagine that you in 10 years has tears of inspiration, of gratitude for you right now today. Why? Because in 10 years, imagine you say, damn, I saw a video and I made a decision, not a motivational decision that's ephemeral. I made the decision to really move forward every day. And that's why I repeat it constantly. Real personal development isn't what you know. Real personal development is what you're going to do today. It's what you do tomorrow. It's what you do every day. Not necessarily big things, but things that make you proud of yourself, because you take your future into your own hands. Learning isn't what you know, it's an observable change in behavior. So I hope this video has brought you value. We made it with heart. I know you realize the work that writing, filming, editing requires to arrive at this version. If you found value in this content, I'd love to read your comments. If you think this video can help someone, send it to a friend. I really think what's in here can change someone's life trajectory. Remember, real personal development isn't what you know, it's what you do.